This is Mary with 5 Minutes with Mary. And what Jesus has been teaching me is that I'm never upset for the reason I think. And it's very surprising how specific the guidance is at times from Jesus, all the time, actually. So it felt like I couldn't connect with the light when I was doing the morning meditation. And my mind just seemed to be all over the place. I just didn't want to connect. So I joined with Kay and another Mighty to look at this desire not to hear the voice for God. And what came through very specifically was that I had a desire to be, now I'm trying to remember the word, wow, the word is just gone. I have a desire that God is out to get me. And that anytime anything comes up, it's God is out to get, God is, okay, the word has come back. The desire to be wronged by God. And at first, it was just like, what? The desire to be wronged by God. And then what he began showing me were various situations in which the ego interpreted the situation as God's fault. I didn't want to take responsibility for what was happening. I wanted to blame God. God is wanting to make this difficult for me. And one of the things that came through was that, of course, if I never talk to God, I'll never find out that's impossible. That's not who God is. And he began to show me various situations in which there seemed to be a repetitive pattern of not being able to get to the other side of the situation. There was like a block there. And so the more I looked at the relishing, just stayed with the relishing of that desire, that God was out to get me. The more I began to see how that interpretation had colored everything. And suddenly it all just cleared up. I could see very clearly that what was blocking my willingness to open to the voice for God was this interpretation that God was out to get me. And then it became very funny. I was like, and in a moment, all this resistance just dropped away. And there was such a sense of freedom from this way of looking at everything that occurs that I don't like, that the ego or the personal identity interprets as negative or a problem or a challenge. So once there was that recognition, then I could see that this was just all something I made up. And it doesn't have to run everything. And there was a recognition that I have all these concepts about God that affect how I see myself and the world. And that by this one specific, looking at the relishing of this one specific desire, and really taking it all the way, there was a release of the hold it has. And the guidance was to continue looking at this desire throughout the day, that just having that experience of, oh wow, look at this. This is ridiculous. It doesn't have to be this way. Look at what's been running me. And I could almost go back and look at situations in my life where the interpretation was that God is out to get me. And kind of anger and resentment and all the stuff that goes with that, that was standing in the way of connecting with spirit. So he was showing me that the relishing of this desire or a desire continues to bring fruit. It continues to bring freedom. when I continue to look, and that I have to continue to look. I have to continue with the relishing, or the ego wants to take over and introduce the old interpretation. So the power of the very specific guidance that Jesus gives as a place to look is what brings about that opening. Looking and looking and looking and relishing and relishing and relishing. Thank you. Oops.